So all three of these guys you're about to learn are doing great things for filmmakers, but since we started with this, I think it gives us a moment to take a second and remember why we're all here. So first and foremost, thanks for the films. Beth, where can we see yours?
Well, that film, Made in Boise, is still in post-production, so that's a fundraising trailer. I know some of the shots were out of focus, so we're covering those currently. But that's a fundraising trailer, and that's in the works, and it's just one of, I'm producing a few other projects right now.
Great, so we'll have to wait.
Yep.
Okay. So, as a filmmaker, there's a great story you told us about getting how you sort of shifted from being only a filmmaker to becoming sort of an activist on behalf of filmmakers. There, I think, was a lunch or something where several of your friends got together. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so I think I'm on this panel because I am an independent filmmaker and a producer, but for the last 2 years, I've also been helping to organize and run an organization called the Doc Producers Alliance. We go by the DPA, and we formed in early 2016, and it was 5 fellow producers and myself, and we were sort of all in crisis. And we were meeting, and we decided to sort of keep meeting, and the more we met, we realized that it wasn't just us. It wasn't that we were professional failures. It wasn't that we couldn't do the job. It was that there were real systemic issues. And about 3 months after our first meeting, we decided to form an organization, and now we're over 120 producers nationwide. We had kept the gates closed for the first 2 years when we were in steering mode, but now the organization is open to all documentary film producers. And we advocate on behalf of producers for the health and welfare of the entire industry. And our goal is really to make this industry that we love and that's so amazing and that does such important work, we want it to work for everyone and even more people.
And the specific crisis you're talking about is the ability to make a living in a...
The ability to make a living. I mean, I thought Firelight's trailer was just fantastic. It just summarized everything. It's the ability to make a living, to find the support that you need, get the credit that you deserve, make it work with your life and your family. And these are all real issues that I think all filmmakers encounter, like just how to make it work. And so that's why I always feel like the sustainability question is so multifaceted.
So when this conversation sort of launched within the industry a couple of years ago, it was first sort of framed as mid-career sustainability. But you guys at Firelight found a sort of extra layer to that goes beyond mid-career for really important reasons. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So, you know, at Firelight, we started about 18 years ago in 2000. And when we started, we were basically a nonprofit production company that was built to produce our co-founder's film, Stanley Nelson. And we did that work. We produced, you know, many of his films over the years. And then maybe about 10 years ago now, you know, we started seeing that the frequency with which emerging filmmakers of color would show up on our doorstep asking for support or guidance was increasing. And that made us sort of think about, well, you know, there's clearly a need, there's clearly a demand. You know, is there a way for us to build some infrastructure around a lot of the mentoring work that Stanley and many other established filmmakers were doing informally, but thinking about ways that we could build some infrastructure so that we could do more and do it more efficiently. And so that's how the documentary lab was born. And the reel that you saw is basically Doc Lab alumni talking about their experience with the program, which is essentially an 18-month fellowship. We provide mentorship, professional development retreats, some funding as well, and then a lot of advocating on behalf of our fellows. And all of this work, and you know, sort of the reason that we even started Firelight, or that Stanley started making films, or that we started the documentary lab, you know, is born from a real love for documentary film, and a real belief in its power in the world and its importance in the world. There's this quote by Latin American artist. I think he might have been one of the co-founders of the Cuban School of Cinema, which says that a nation without documentaries is like a family without a photo album, which to me really, you know, speaks to why we love this form so much. We love it, but yet we also know that the form, the kind of the beginnings of it are very tied to colonial underpinnings and anthropological underpinnings, where you know, the kind of the making of the normal and the making of the other arises from, right? This study of, you know, the other, and that defining and that distancing of the norm at the center and everyone else at the margins. And documentaries for a very long time have been about white filmmakers documenting Black and brown bodies for the consumption of white audiences. And so, again, you know, I started from the place of love. We love it, but we know that it comes from a deeply troubled place, as a form and as a field and as an industry, just like, you know, our country. You know, it's a great country, but, you know, we're founded on genocide and slavery, right? And so we have some issues, you know, to address. And for us, when we think about sustainability, we really start the conversation there, with the understanding that the field never took us into account as makers or as audiences, simply as objects and subjects. And so our existence in this field is always an intervention. It's always a disruption. And, you know, even when we are welcomed, you know, nowadays we have a lot of diversity initiatives. There is still oftentimes this feeling of being treated as the kind of the perpetual foreign guest. So you're not quite, you know, a part of it. And so, again, the programs that we have started are about creating points of access for emerging filmmakers of color, understanding these kind of structural barriers that exist to entry, and that also then, you know, complicate everyone's ability to stay in the field. So the issues, the way that we think about them, they're economic and they're structural, but there's also these other very nuanced pieces that are about, you know, race, class, gender, identity, and a number of other things. So maybe I'll stop there.
Great. So there's a problem of just getting in. So we have to talk about the sustainability of people that are in, and we have to talk about people getting in, particularly underrepresented folks, but not solely. And Theresa, you guys at Amdocs through POV, et cetera, are largely focused on sort of second-time filmmakers and moving them forward, but you've recently started doing some things to try and help get people in, right?
Yeah, I would say, you know, American Documentary is the national, you know, media arts nonprofit that has produced POV for PBS for the 31 years now. So, you know, the big thing about POV, the whole mission of it is this idea that indie filmmakers are these critical chroniclers of the human experience, and that access to good, you know, bold, independent documentary film is a human right, and it should be accessible to everybody across the country, not just folks who have an art house, you know, in their city or have, you know, proximity to a film festival. You know, so these are great spaces as kind of, and that we have to acknowledge our role at, you know, POV in the system and film festivals and other spaces as gatekeepers. And so, you know, that's the kind of thing that we're doing right now, is interrogating our role, and then also kind of really recognizing, you know, our ability to kind of provide a national platform for, yes, second-time filmmakers as well as first-time filmmakers. And so although POV, from, you know, the reel that we shared from this season, does have several, you know, second-time and very established filmmakers, obviously, we also realizing the kind of wealth of work that's out there, and the need for it to kind of be seen by the broadest possible audience. In 2012, I believe, is when we established America Reframed, which is a newer series. We've shown many Firelight folks there. Personal Statement, which Beth produced, also just premiered there after doing a really great festival tour. Just picked up a big Apple Award, documentary award, I think this last week. And so it's really a space for us to be able to work with folks to get their work seen, for us to be able to give them the support. So, you know, with the rise of other distributors, one thing that kind of sets our work apart is our filmmaker focus. So we do provide the critical kind of data points back to the filmmaker in terms of the audiences that they reached, audience surveys, things that can actually be critical for them to get to the next film in terms of grant information, as well as actually providing the award submission, you know, infrastructure so they can get the Emmy or the DuPont or the whatever that is cost prohibitive for many first-time filmmakers and often second and third-time veteran filmmakers. These are, you know, these are really difficult things that we have to be very frank about, you know, can make your career, right? So those are the kinds of things we're thinking about in terms of our work as a series in the system. And then as a nonprofit media arts organization, what is AMDOC uniquely positioned to do in terms of serving the community? And some of those initiatives are, you know, related to our internship program as well as our Artist Emergency Fund. And I can talk more about that, you know, as we continue.
Great. And I believe that in an effort to make it more, excuse me, to make things more accessible, you've also created some extra real estate. Yeah.
I think just this year, actually, we launched a POV Shorts series. So we're acquiring shorts. We're paying shorts filmmakers. I mean, we've always programmed shorts as part of the larger POV strand and as well as with America Reframed. And now we're starting to acquire shorts and pay filmmakers for their short film to broadcast on the national schedule and also like allow folks to, it's exclusive broadcast, non-exclusive streaming, obviously. So even our acquisitions model is intended to be as flexible and as beneficial to the filmmaker as possible so that filmmakers can retain their rights, so that filmmakers can parcel out their rights internationally however they need, and that we are mainly concerned with our ability to show it to, you know, audiences around the country. I think I mentioned to you, like, a majority of our audiences are actually households that are making under 40K.
That's fascinating.
So those are the things that are like, everybody needs to see your work, that you should be household names across the country.
Nice. Okay, so Beth, here we are in the golden age of documentary, as we hear on a fairly constant basis. So why have we hit a sustainability issue in the middle of the golden age of documentaries?
I mean, you asked me this morning, and in some ways I think it's the $10 million question. I think there are a lot of reasons. I mean, most of us here in this audience are probably independent filmmakers. So if you don't have a Netflix original deal, or if you're not getting commissioned work, I think making independent films is still incredibly difficult. There are more and more films being made. Everybody's competing for the same grants. There is pressure to bring down budgets. And oftentimes it means bringing down your budget to an unsustainable level. So just by way of example, in full disclosure, so I'm submitting to Rogovy today. It's due today. They have a development grant. I've been working for about 3 or 4 months on this project, pro bono, and the whole plan was that I would recoup my investment should we get development money. But I kind of know what development grantors want to come in at, and as I'm honing and finessing the budget, I'm realizing that I basically can't pay myself back for the time that I put in, which was the original plan. And then it raises the question, well, when am I going to get that money back?